All right, let's get to it. So how do you know what to set the free meter to? 1 article a week, 5 articles a month, 10 articles a month, etc. And so I came across a great article by the Lenfest Institute, which did some research on exactly this. And what they said is they surveyed 500 publishers that had paywalls in place. And what they found, first of all, which was interesting, is that the average publisher was way too generous with their content. Let's see here. They needed to stop, and that's the lingo that we use. How many stops with the paywall did you get as a percentage of the users that have been on your site? And so what they found is 1.8% of their readership was being presented the nag or the subscription prompt. Then they took a look at, well, what was working for publishers who considered having a thriving digital subscription business. And what they found out is that if the paywall stops, we're between 4.2% and 6% of your unique visitors. That was considered a good way to a good number to create a thriving digital business. Now, these are news publishers, general news publishers, and your publication might be a little different. Might be a magazine, might be something else, maybe less content, more long form, as we're going to talk about next. But these are some general numbers to work with. So now, having said that, how do you figure out what percentage of stops you're actually getting on your paywall? And that's where we come into something new. So I'm gonna talk about T-Journey here. This is the publication that we're pretty involved with, and we use it as a kind of a testing ground for different things. It's been around for a few years now. We've rebooted it as of this year, and it's a new format, and we have Leaky Paywall running on it. We have Issues running on it. We have everything, basically all our software, including apps, running on it. And if you look in the back end of this site on the Leaky Paywall subscriber screen, there's a new stats board here called NAG Stats. And what this does is it flags anytime a visitor hits an article and the meter's used up, and the NAG, the subscription prompt, triggers, it records this. And so you can bug Jeremy afterwards to get, I think you have this as a plugin now, right?
Yeah.
Maybe close to it. Okay. Well, we could get this on your site, I'm sure, so you can take a look at it. And so what do you do with it? Now, this is raw data. It's just recording every single trigger. So here's today, the IP address that person came from, and what actual piece of content that they were reading. And so to get the percentage, all you got to do is, let's say you go back 30 days. You can grab it and just quickly copy. You can go 30 days back, and then pop it into a spreadsheet here, and just drop it into the spreadsheet. And then all you got to do is, every record takes up 4 rows. So figure out how many rows you take up, divide by 4, and that's how many stops you got. So I looked at T-Journey, and I got, the first time I looked at it was over 30 days ago. I looked at a 30-day window. I think we had something like 800 stops or something like that against the users that were on the site. So then once you know how many stops you have, which is brought off of here, divided by 4, then go into your analytics and pull up the same period of time, say it's 30 days, and then see how many users that you had on the site, and then divide the number of stops that you have, the NAG stops, by the number of users, and you'll get a percentage of how many times per user that nag is showing. Now, what was interesting is we found with T-Journey was that 30% of users, and this was it's about a month and a half ago, about 30% of users were seeing our paywall, which blew my mind. I was like, okay, so the Lenfest is saying that, you want around 6% maybe of the stops. We got 30%, but subscriptions weren't pouring in, so we were only getting really a few subscriptions. I don't know, a handful a week. And what were we doing wrong, right? So Jeremy and I traveled out to the WordCamp for Publishers out in Columbus about a month ago or so, where we talked a lot about subscriptions. And the thing that was being repeated over and over and drew a lot of attention was the focus on reducing the friction in the paid subscription path. So, traditionally speaking, when you go to subscribe, now I'm logged in here, so I'll just open this in incognito. When you go and subscribe, so if I pick an option, traditionally, I got a lot to do here. So, okay, it's $25 for the year. I got to fill in my details. Then I got payment information. So I have to go through a fair amount of friction in order to capture that subscription, which is okay, and people do it. But how do you reduce the friction in it? And so, and I'm not going to tell you exactly how to do this, but I'll tell you what we did. We created a new free level subscription for T-Journey, and the idea being that if we can get people to register on the site first and get that over with, give them a few more free articles for registering, and then get them on the email list, which if you've been here before or talked to us at all, you know that building that email list and automating it and all that is priority number one. So the free level does two things. One, we're trying to reduce the friction point so that when somebody comes in, they can simply register and not deliver any kind of credit card information, get in the system, get on our email list, and then every week or so the emails roll out saying, hey, there's a new article, go read it. Now they've gotten a couple more free articles that month, but what we're finding out is, and then the big question is, okay, well now we're getting people registering, and this is working quite well. We're getting new registrations, free registrations, and now these free registrations are giving people more access. So what happened to our stop rate? And what blew my mind again is that our stop rate, one thing I forgot. We changed, the meter was set to 2 free articles per month. That was the old meter. And as soon as you hit those 2, you're done with the 2 articles. The 3rd article you had to pay. With the new free level, we have restricted the meter to 1 free article a month. The idea being that you get your free article, and these are long form articles. And again, this came out of sort of a magazine type of approach. It's very long form content, not very frequent delivery of content, a couple articles a week. And so you get 1 long form article, and if you want more, then you subscribe. So we did tighten the meter up. We cut it in half essentially, and then we created this free offer that you're looking at right now. And so what happened? So our stop rate went from 30% to almost 60%. So now we have almost more than half of visitors that hit the site get stopped, and that it makes total sense. And we're getting quite a lot of new registrants. And so looking at the data, again, this is still a little fluid, but looking at the data for about a month and a half, our email subscriptions have increased about 50% so far. So, and we'll continue to report on it as the time goes, but so far that's pretty good. And then paid subscriptions honestly have stayed about the same. They haven't changed much. They didn't go away because we were giving away free articles. Part of the strategy is if we can build the list faster and we know that anybody who's on an email list has a 10 times better chance of subscribing, then it's worth grabbing those, those free registrants and getting them in the system. And of course, once you get them into the system, you can track their usage. You can, they're on the list. There's more you can do with them, and they're more engaged. And then back to the friction point is once they're ready to subscribe, all they're doing. I'm not logged in here. Let me get rid of this. So if I hit subscribed and I'm logged in, I'm an admin. It's not working, but all I have to do is put my payment information in. So it's a two-step process. You register first to get a few more free articles, get on the list, automatically send the content to that new list member, drive them back to the site, have them read more, trigger the nag, and that email subscriber has 10 times. And somebody at the show, at the conference, said that they reported over 30% increase in subscriptions because of their list building. So I don't know if I mean, for them, that's great. I think on average, it's about 10 times. So you want to get those names on the email list. They go back to the site, and when it's time to pay, they're already registered. So all they're doing is filling out their payment information, and you have reduced the friction in the whole thing. And so this is a kind of a longer term play, because we're building the relationship with the free registration, and then hoping that they come back. And then now that we've given them more and we've started that relationship, and I'm sure with that email, there's more to do as far as the relationship goes.
Yeah. Hey, Pete. One question is, how many number of free articles do you give after they've given their information the first time? So maybe go over the Leaky Paywall restrictions and what they get.
Yeah, sure. So let me hop in. That's probably a good idea. All right. So let's go to Leaky Paywall and subscriptions. So we have 30 days. So every 30 days you get, in this case it's a little different because we have the latest articles, which fall under posts, and we also have the issue M issues, which fall under articles. So we have two special issues that we put together. So one in this post type and one in the other. So there's your one, essentially, freebie. And then let's go down to the free level. Just I think, let me go all the way go all the way to the end here. Okay. So free registration right here. So the cost is 0. That's how you create a free registration. And then it's a 1 month recurring. And then you get, we're adding 2 to the one for both posts, and 2 to the one for the issue, for the articles in the issue. So that's how you create your level for the free. So the sales copy says sign up and get 3 premium articles per month. So that's what they're getting. And then we add them to the list, and when they run out of that, they get a new, go back to general here. So the subscription message, which is in the general tab here under Leaky Paywall, says, read this article now for free, and has that. And then once they're logged in and they exhaust their 3 free articles that month, they get the upgrade message that says, hey, you're out of articles here. And then it encourages them to actually pay to get full access. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any more. So.
Okay, cool. Let me just look at my notes here, because I wrote all my notes down and I completely ignored them as I started talking. Yep. So we talked about the impact of our email list. So what's the So the last thing I have is, what's the action? Get the NAG plugin from us, install it, and it will start tracking new stops by Leaky Paywall. So you'll have to wait, I'd say, at least a week, depending on the amount of volume you have. But I'd wait about a week before you look at the NAG stats, and then essentially compare the number of stops that you got in that week with the number of users on your site, and you'll get a percentage of what the stop rate is for your site. And it'll get you thinking about, should you go? Should you be? So if you're giving 5 free articles a month, should you go to 4 and see what happens? Go to 3 and see what happens. And in our case, I really wanted to pull the friction out of the transaction and create sort of that two-step approach with the free registration and then the paid once someone's free, get them on the list. So I'll report back, and we'll take a look at the data down the road in the future webinars, I'm sure, and see where we get. Okay, so that's the action plan. I think that's what I had to cover. And Jeremy, you want to talk about new software and new regulations?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, let's take a look at the. We could just look here on your screen with the settings real quick for the new subscribe card settings.
Oh, that's a good idea. Okay.
So this is a setting we just added in the latest release. So before you had to do some coding to adjust the description on the subscribe cards, but now you can do it right from in the Leaky Paywall settings. So if you go down to a level,
yeah, so you hit subscriptions first.
Descriptions, yep.
There.
And then also your the registration form description. So you can adjust that.
Yep.
So then if you go to
this was great, by the way. I'm sorry for T-Journey. This is for me being a non-developer, it really worked well.
Yep. So, and you can put HTML in both of those spots. But go ahead and pull up the subscribe pages so we can see where that outputs on the front end. So you'll see in these cards here that text that was input in the settings is now output right on the cards. And then if you hit subscribe, then where that says content access in the gray box, that's where that registration form description shows up. So now that's fully customizable, and you don't have to do any coding to make that work.
Yeah,
I know that was a big request that we've had that we finally got completed. And then the other thing we wanted to touch base on was the SCA. So there's a new European regulation if you accept payments in Europe. It's called Strong Customer Authentication, which basically requires 2 forms of authentication before a payment can be processed. And so we've been working on updating Leaky Paywall's Stripe integration to comply with those new regulations. So we've got it working for Stripe checkout. So it will go to a hosted Stripe page. And then we are currently working on adding it to the registration form that you see here on your screen. So if you're using that, it will work as well. So the deadlines for that is September 14th. So we've been working hard on getting all that put together, getting that finished up and tested. So we've got the checkout version done. So now we're just finishing up the registration form integration. And then we'll have that ready to go by the September 14th deadline.
Cool. Yeah. The Europeans, they're all over everyone with privacy.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, and then we'll have it so it works both with one-time payments and also recurring subscriptions. So it will work. One thing it does change is that it removes the Stripe checkout modal if you are using that on your site. that's no longer supported through Stripe's API with the SCA integration.
That's the pop-up, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So instead, it just goes to a hosted page, kind of how PayPal works.
Yep. Okay.
So, and then the other thing I wanted to touch base on was the shipping add-on that we just released recently. So if you're doing digital and print, so you just want to open up z101.com and we'll just show it there.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you just go to our add-ons page, it's the first one in the list. So basically, we had a lot of requests just for, as far as custom fields go in the registration form, basically people just needed address fields to be able to take print. So what you can do is you can set whether to, you can see right there in the screenshots, basically set take international shipping or not. So you set your base region, whether to take international shipping, and then kind of the form title there. And then you can choose to enable it on a per level basis. So you can see that little pink arrow there. So that way, if you only want it on the annual level or something like that, or you have a digital only and you have a digital plus print, you can choose where those shipping fields show up, and then you can see the fields down there below. In the next screenshot. And then depending on which country you select, adjust the state field. So, and then you can view those details on the transaction. So when you go to Leaky Paywall transactions, you'll see the shipping info there. And if you use our reporting tool and do an export of your subscribers, you'll also see it in that, on that, which is that next screenshot down there at the bottom. There you go.
Cool.
So yeah, you could still, if you need to adjust these fields, we still have the documentation for how to do that in the code. But if you don't want to have to worry about code and you just need shipping fields, then hopefully this add-on will get you what you need. So, and if you're part of PubCare or Anvil, then you have access to this. So it's in your My Account page on Z101.
Cool.
Yep. So, and then we've had a request, which is actually a really good idea for sending this address data also to either MailChimp, if you're using the Leaky Paywall MailChimp integration, and then also sending it as data to Stripe. And so I'm working on updating it to do that.
Yeah, that's great. That was a big request. Yep. All right. I am monitoring Q&A, by the way, in the sidebar. If you guys have any questions about this, and no question is a dumb question. I won't heckle you. And if you
have questions about anything else.
Yeah, right. And if there's anything else that you want us to cover, to talk about, I'd certainly be interested in hearing about that. You can email us directly or chat it up here. Since we have 5 minutes left in the webinar.
Okay, here we go. Here's a, let's see. Yeah, so Jeff, we're not using the subscription cards because you're on using a fulfillment center. So you don't have to. The fulfillment center kind of handles all that stuff, so you don't have to worry about that. But we can talk offline for how to, if we do want to have some kind of call out to the different subscription options before we send them off. We can chat about how to do that on your site. Let's see. Got some more questions coming in. Is there any percentage of the article for free? Yeah, so you can set by default as far as how much of the article is shown. It pulls in the excerpt of the article and shows that before the subscribe nag. But there's also a setting in Leaky Paywall General settings that you can put a character count for how long you want the excerpt to be before the nag shows. So you can see on each screen there, that value that he's adjusting is where you would make that change. So, and that's not words, that's actual characters. So just keep that in mind, kind of like Twitter, the 140 characters. So, importing customer fields into issue M. Let's see, I'm not sure what the question is on that. Dave, if you want to.
Maybe that's importing fields into Leaky Paywall. Issue M is the issue publishers. That's for basically creating web editions of your content. Any customer information would live in Leaky Paywall. So maybe that has to do with, does that have to do with like the bulk import or getting
Not sure.
custom fields?
You could, yeah, Dave, maybe just clarify a little bit what you're trying to do. Let's see. Percentage of the article for free.
Oh, I see.
Physical. What do you see?
If I have 1,000 articles, so there should be 10% of it for free because this works, or 5%. You mean the number of articles out of 1,000 that you should have for free as a starting point? Yeah, 10% would be really high. That's 100 articles. Essentially, if you look at analytics and see how many times or how many, say, articles someone comes in and reads, it's usually between 1 and 2 for a flyby. Somebody comes in, reads an article, they might read a second article, then they'll go away. And if you have them on an email list, then they're going to come back and read more. And so you kind of have to figure out, well, how many articles are they really going to consume in a month? And you want to serve the casual reader who will never subscribe enough articles to keep coming back to the site. But somebody who's crossing from, casual to hardcore reader, you want that nag, you want the stop count to go, you want to make sure they get stopped by the nag so that they have to think about subscribing. The New York Times, when they started years ago, they gave 20 free articles per month. So you pick the time period, like a month is good, or a week if you're producing a lot of news in a week. And then they started at 20. Then they went to 10 about a couple of years ago. Now they're at 5 free articles a month. So it's really more about the individual. And with the meter, the individual gets to choose what article they want to read. So you're just setting that global setting. They kind of dig into what they want to read, and the meter just counts their usage. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and then on the custom fields, so there's a little bit of clarification there. So if you're using the Leaky Paywall bulk import, it only imports custom fields related to Leaky Paywall, so you can't do additional custom fields with it. But if you use another plugin, and there's free ones on the repo, or you could use WPL import with their user add-on, then you can easily import any custom field to a user. So yeah, so you can take that username and import it as a custom field, just set whatever the value of the custom field is that you want it to be. But yeah, you would need to use a different plugin besides the bulk import one of Leaky Paywall.
And there's a help doc, right, in our documents for that?
Yeah.